The phone stopped ringing, and I set it down on the kitchen table next to my coffee. My hand wasn't shaking, which surprised me. 70 years on this earth, and I'd faced down drought, debt, and death, but telling my daughter no for the first time felt like stepping off a cliff in the dark. You made it clear you don't want a connection to these people. I'm respecting your decision. The words had come out calm, measured, not angry. I wasn't angry. That was the part Brittany would never understand. Anger burns hot and fast, but what I felt was something colder, something that had been building since the wedding 3 months ago. I looked out the window at the September fields, corn stalks brown and spent, waiting for harvest. The land stretched out in every direction, 500 acres my grandfather cleared with a mule and a plow, that my father expanded with a tractor and faith, that I'd held on to through farm crises and Margaret's cancer bills. Brittany used to call it the middle of nowhere. She wasn't wrong, geographically. We're 40 minutes outside Bloomington, Illinois, in a township with more grain silos than stoplights, but it was never nowhere to me. The coffee had gone cold. I dumped it in the sink and checked my watch, 6:47 a.m. The sun was already climbing, which meant I was behind schedule. Tuesday was the day I drove into town to have breakfast at Donna's Diner, same booth by the window, same order for the past 8 years since Margaret passed. Routine kept me sane. I grabbed my keys and jacket, locked up the farmhouse, and climbed into my F-150. The truck was older than most marriages these days, but it ran clean and started every time. That counted for something. The drive into town took 20 minutes down County Road 18, past the Henderson farm where Travis still ran dairy cattle, past the old Methodist church where Margaret and I got married in 1976, past the elementary school that closed 5 years ago when all the young families moved closer to Bloomington for jobs. Donna's Diner sat on Main Street between the hardware store and what used to be a Rexall pharmacy. The bell above the door chimed when I walked in, and Donna herself, 60-something, silver hair and a practical bun, looked up from the register and smiled. "Morning, Kenneth. Usual spot's open." "Morning, Donna." I slid into the booth and didn't need to look at the menu. 2 eggs over easy. Wheat toast, bacon, coffee. Donna brought the coffee first, black, no sugar. "You okay?" she asked, setting down the mug. "You look tired. Didn't sleep much." She nodded like she understood, even though she couldn't possibly. Donna had 3 sons, all of them still in Illinois, all of them stopping by her house every Sunday for pot roast. She didn't know what it felt like to be erased by your own child. "Brittany doing all right in the city?" she asked. I wrapped both hands around the warm mug. "She's figuring things out." It wasn't a lie. Brittany was figuring things out, just not the way she expected. The rent call this morning proved that. 2 months ago, right after the wedding, I'd transferred the condo title into her name, my wedding gift. No more mortgage, just property taxes, HOA fees, and utilities. I figured if she wanted independence, she could start there. What I didn't do was keep paying her monthly allowance, $2,500 every month for the past 6 years. Rent money, she called it, even though I owned the place outright. Fun money was more accurate. Donna brought my breakfast and left me alone. I ate slowly, watching Main Street wake up. The hardware store owner flipped his sign to open. A mail truck rolled past. 2 women I recognized from church walked by with travel mugs, probably headed to the library where one of them worked. This was the world Brittany couldn't wait to leave. I'd paid for Northwestern, 4 years, full tuition, room and board. Margaret had been so proud the day the acceptance letter came. "Our girl's going to do something important," she'd said, hands trembling as she held the paper. Brittany majored in communications, minored in art history, graduated with honors and no job prospects. She moved into a studio in Wicker Park and started calling herself a brand consultant. As far as I could tell, that meant meeting friends for overpriced coffee and posting photos on Instagram. But I didn't push. I just kept the checks coming. Margaret would have pushed. Margaret had a spine made of railroad iron and a sense of fairness that didn't bend for anyone, including our daughter. She would have cut Brittany off after graduation, told her to figure it out like everyone else. But Margaret wasn't here, and I was lonely, and writing those checks every month made me feel needed. Until the wedding. I'd flown out to Connecticut for it. Shane's family insisted on having it at some country club in Greenwich. The whole weekend felt like walking through someone else's dream. Everything was white and gold and expensive, the flowers, the food, the five-piece band that played during dinner. Shane's father, Douglas, was the investment banker, the kind of man who wore cufflinks on Saturday and talked about positions and portfolios like they were living things. His wife, Patricia, reminded me of a museum sculpture, beautiful, cold, untouchable. At the rehearsal dinner, I sat at a table with Shane's relatives while Brittany worked the room like a politician. I heard her laughing too loud, saw her touching Shane's arm possessively, watched her become someone I didn't quite recognize. Then I heard it. "We're both so ready to start fresh," Brittany said to Patricia and Douglas, her voice carrying across the room. "New city, new name, new everything. I'm finally getting away from small-town narrow-mindedness, you know? No offense to my dad, but I need to build my own identity, separate from all that." Patricia had smiled thinly. "Of course, dear. It's important to evolve beyond one's origins." The words hit me like a fist to the sternum, but I didn't react. I just sat there, fork in hand, pretending I hadn't heard. The next day, during the ceremony, when the officiant said, "I now pronounce you Mr. and Mrs. Shane Morrison," Brittany beamed like she'd won something. No hyphen, no Bradford, just Morrison. I clapped with everyone else. At the reception, she danced with Shane, cut the cake, threw the bouquet. She didn't mention me in her speech. Shane thanked both families for their support, but Brittany only thanked his parents for welcoming her into such an incredible family. I stayed until the end, hugged her goodbye, shook Shane's hand, and flew back to Illinois. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "I want to transfer the condo into Brittany's name," I told him, "and I want to stop the monthly payments." "You sure about this, Kenneth?" "I'm sure." It took 2 weeks to finalize the paperwork. I sent Brittany an email with the deed attachment. "The condo is yours now. Congratulations on your marriage." She replied with a thumbs-up emoji. That was 10 weeks ago. I finished my breakfast at Donna's, left a 10 on the table, and drove back to the farm. The morning was clear and cool, the kind of October day Margaret used to love. She'd make us pack a lunch and drive out to Starved Rock, just to walk the trails and watch the Illinois River wind through the canyons. I missed her most in autumn. Back home, I changed into work clothes and spent the afternoon in the equipment barn, draining oil from the combine, checking belts and hoses. Harvest would start next week if the weather held. My neighbor Travis had already offered to help, and his son Derek would run one of the grain trucks. Around 4 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Brittany. "Dad, we need to talk. Call me." I stared at the screen, oil-stained fingers leaving smudges on the glass. Then I pocketed the phone and went back to work. She called again at 6 p.m. I let it go to voicemail. At 7 p.m., she texted again. "This is ridiculous. You're being childish." I made myself dinner, pork chop, green beans, mashed potatoes, and ate at the kitchen table while reading the Bloomington Pandagraph. The Cubs had been eliminated from playoff contention. Corn futures were down. The county was debating whether to expand Route 9. My phone rang at 8:30 p.m. This time I answered. "Dad," her voice was tight, strained. "What the hell is going on?" "Evening, Brittany." "Don't evening me. Why aren't you answering? Why haven't you paid October rent?" I set down my fork. "You own the condo. There is no rent." "You know what I mean. The money. The monthly money." "I transferred the property to you as a wedding gift. You're a married woman now, building your own life. I figured you and Shane would handle your own finances." Silence. Then, "Are you serious right now?" "Completely." "Dad, Shane and I are just getting started. His job doesn't pay as much as we thought, and my business is in a growth phase. We had expenses. The wedding was expensive. Your in-laws paid for the wedding." Another silence, sharper this time. "So what?" she said finally. "You're punishing me?" "No." "Then what do you call this?" I looked out at the darkened fields. "I'm respecting your decision." "What decision?" "You made it clear at your wedding that you want distance from these people. I'm giving you that. You're Brittany Morrison now. You're building your own identity, separate from all this. I think that's good. I think you should." "Oh my God," her voice cracked. "You're seriously going to hold that against me?" "I was just talking, Dad. I didn't mean..." "You took his name, completely. That was a choice. It's traditional." "Your mother hyphenated. Most women do now." "So I'm a bad person because I didn't hyphenate?" "I didn't say that." "You're implying it." I rubbed my eyes. "Brittany, I'm not angry. I'm not punishing you. I'm just letting you stand on your own. You're 32 years old. You're married. It's time." "Time?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "You've been paying my bills for 6 years, and suddenly it's time?" "Yes." Because I didn't hyphenate my name? Because you made it clear who you are and who you're not connected to anymore. I'm honoring that. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then quietly, I need help, Dad. I'm sure Shane's parents, they're not helping either. Her voice dropped. They think Shane should have married someone from their world. They're barely talking to us. Something in my chest tightened. I'm sorry to hear that. So you'll help? No. Dad, Brittany, I love you, but I can't keep doing this. Can't keep doing what? Being my father? The words hit like she wanted them to, but I kept my voice steady. Can't keep enabling you to avoid growing up. She sucked in a breath. You're a son of a bitch. Then she hung up. I sat there in the quiet kitchen, phone still in my hand, and wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life, or the first right decision in a decade. She showed up 3 days later. I was in the barn, greasing the combine header, when I heard tires on gravel. I looked out to see a silver Audi, Shane's car, pulling up to the house. Brittany got out alone, wearing designer jeans and a leather jacket that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked out to meet her. Brittany, Dad, she crossed her arms. We need to talk. You drove 4 hours to talk? You won't answer my calls. I answered the last one, and then ignored the 15 after it. Her jaw was tight, eyes red-rimmed. She'd been crying, maybe recently. Can we go inside? I nodded toward the house. She followed me in, and I noticed she was walking differently, less confident, more uncertain. The kitchen looked smaller with her in it, like she'd outgrown the space years ago and was only now noticing how cramped it felt. Coffee? I asked. Sure. I put on a pot, and we sat at the table, where I'd eaten 10,000 meals with Margaret, where Brittany had done her homework as a kid, where we'd celebrated her high school graduation with chocolate cake, and her mother's proud tears. How's Shane? I asked. Fine. She wasn't looking at me. Working a lot. And your business? Dad, stop. She finally met my eyes. You know why I'm here. I do. Then why are you making me say it? I poured 2 cups of coffee, set one in front of her. Because I want you to be honest. With me and with yourself. She wrapped her hands around the mug, staring down into it like it might have answers. I need help. Financial help. Just for a few months while we get on our feet. No. Dad, Brittany, I gave you a mortgage-free condo in one of the most expensive cities in America. That's more help than most people get in a lifetime. The HOA fees alone are $1,800 a month. Plus utilities, plus Shane's car payment, plus sell the Audi, get something practical. Her face flushed. That's his car. He needs it for work. He's in marketing, not surgery. He doesn't need a $50,000 car. You don't understand the pressure we're under. Then help me understand. She set down the mug hard enough that coffee sloshed over the rim. Shane's parents hate me. They think I'm some gold-digging hick from flyover country who trapped their son. His mother literally asked him if he was sure about this decision the week before the wedding. They're freezing us out financially because they don't approve. That's hard, I said quietly. I'm sorry. And now you're doing the same thing. I'm not freezing you out, Brittany. I'm letting you stand up. By cutting me off? By stopping the pattern that's kept you dependent since college. She laughed, sharp and mean. This is about the name thing, isn't it? You're punishing me because I didn't want to be Brittany Bradford Morrison. It's not about punishment. Then what? I took a breath, choosing my words carefully. At your rehearsal dinner, you told Shane's parents you were escaping small-town narrow-mindedness. You said you needed to build your own identity, separate from all that. You meant separate from me, from this place, from everything your mother and I built. I was nervous. I was trying to impress them. By putting me down? I didn't... She stopped, swallowed. I didn't think you heard that. I did. And you've been holding on to it ever since. No. I shook my head. I've been thinking about it ever since. Thinking about what kind of father keeps paying his adult daughter's bills because he's afraid she won't love him if he stops. Thinking about what your mother would say if she saw what I'd let you become. Brittany's face crumpled. What I've become? What's that supposed to mean? You're 32 years old and you've never supported yourself, not once. You went from our house to college on my dime to that condo on my dime. You've never had to choose between paying rent and eating. You've never had to budget. You've never had to sacrifice. So I'm spoiled. Is that what you're saying? I'm saying I spoiled you and I'm trying to stop. She stood up, chair scraping against the floor. You're unbelievable. Mom would be ashamed of you. That one landed. I felt it in my chest, a deep ache that spread through my ribs. Your mother, I said slowly, would have cut you off the day after graduation. She would have told you to get a job at Starbucks if you had to learn what real work felt like. She would have loved you fiercely and let you struggle anyway because that's what real love looks like sometimes. Brittany's hands were shaking. Don't tell me what Mom would have done. You don't know. I was married to her for 36 years. I know. She would have helped me. She would have helped you help yourself. There's a difference. Brittany grabbed her purse. I can't believe this. I drive all the way out here, practically beg you for help, and you throw Mom in my face and act like some kind of tough love hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just trying to be a better father than I've been. She stopped at the door, hand on the knob. By abandoning me? By believing you're strong enough to figure this out? She stared at me for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. I hate you right now. I know. I mean it. I know. She slammed the door on her way out. The Audi sprayed gravel as she tore down the driveway. I sat alone in the kitchen, listening to the old house settle, and prayed I'd done the right thing. 6 weeks passed. Harvest came and went. The corn yielded better than expected, 184 bushels per acre. Travis and I worked long days, his son Derek running the grain truck to the elevator in town. The weather held clear and cold, perfect combining weather. Brittany didn't call. I didn't call her either. Sundays were the hardest. I'd sit in the same pew at First Methodist where Margaret and I used to sit, where we'd brought Brittany as a baby, and I'd listen to Pastor Joel preach about grace and forgiveness and wonder if I'd confuse tough love with hardness of heart. But every time I thought about calling, about sending money, I'd remember that look on her face at the rehearsal dinner, that desperate need to be someone else, someone better, someone not connected to me. And I'd put the phone down, mid-November. Travis stopped by with a venison roast his wife had made. We sat at my kitchen table and he asked, casual as anything, "How's Brittany doing?" "Don't know," I said. "Haven't talked to her in a while." Travis nodded slowly. He'd known Margaret, had been at her funeral, knew the whole story without me having to explain. "That's hard." "It is." "You doing okay?" I thought about it. "Some days." He gripped my shoulder as he left. "Margaret would be proud of you, Kenneth, just so you know." I wasn't sure he was right, but it helped to hear it. Thanksgiving came. I drove to Travis's place for dinner with his family, his wife Erica, their son Derek, and his girlfriend Kayla, their daughter Lindsay, home from college. They included me like I belonged there, passed me mashed potatoes and asked about my winter plans, and I was grateful for the distraction, but the empty chair at the table felt like a weight. December brought snow. I spent the days maintaining equipment, reading, watching the news. I thought about calling Brittany for Christmas, thought about it every day, didn't do it. Then, 2 days before Christmas, my phone rang at 7 a.m. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Bradford?" A woman's voice, young, professional. "This is Amanda from Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago. I'm calling about your daughter, Brittany Morrison." My heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She's stable. She was brought in last night with severe dehydration and malnutrition. She's asking for you." I drove to Chicago through a snowstorm, white-knuckling the steering wheel the whole way. 4 hours became 6. I barely noticed. Northwestern Memorial was a massive complex near the lake. I found her room on the 4th floor. She looked small in the hospital bed. Too small. Her face was gaunt, cheekbones sharp, dark circles under her eyes. An IV ran into her left arm. "Dad." Her voice was barely a whisper. I pulled a chair next to the bed and took her hand. "I'm here." "I'm sorry." Tears spilled over. "I'm so sorry." "Shh. Don't worry about that now. I screwed up everything." "Tell me what happened." It came out in pieces. Shane had lost his job in October, corporate downsizing. He'd been too proud to tell his parents, too ashamed to tell me. They'd been living on credit cards, then selling things, then not eating properly because they couldn't afford both food and the HOA fees. Her consulting business had never existed. It was just a way to avoid admitting she had no job, no skills, no plan. Shane had finally broken down and called his parents last week. Douglas had wired them enough money to cover December's bills and told Shane to figure out his life before asking for more. Brittany had been subsisting on crackers and coffee, too proud to ask for help, too ashamed to admit how bad things had gotten. She'd collapsed at the condo. Shane had called 911. "Where is Shane?" I asked. "At work. He got a new job, retail management. He's working a double shift to cover the hospital bill." She squeezed my hand. "Dad, I was so stupid. About everything. The name thing, the things I said, the way I treated you. I thought if I could just be someone different, someone impressive, everything would work out. And I'm still me, just broker and more miserable." I brushed hair from her forehead like I used to when she was little. "You're going to be okay. I don't deserve your help. That's not how love works, honey." She cried then, really cried, and I held her hand and let her. We worked it out, slowly. I paid the hospital bill, brought Brittany back to the farm to recover while Shane held down his new job. We sat at that kitchen table and had the hard conversations about money, about expectations, about the difference between helping and enabling. She got a job at the Bloomington Library, started small, learned to budget. She and Shane sold the Audi, bought a used Honda. They stayed in the condo but rented out a bedroom to cover costs. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and arguments and moments when the old patterns almost reasserted themselves. But something had shifted. One Sunday in February, Brittany showed up at church, slid into the pew next to me, didn't say anything, just sat there. After the service, walking to our cars, she said, "I'm thinking about hyphenating Bradford Morrison, if that's okay." I stopped. "You don't need my permission." "I know, but I want your blessing." I looked at my daughter, thinner now, but stronger somehow, clearer in the eyes. "You have it," I said. She hugged me, tight and long. "I love you, Dad. I'm sorry it took me so long to figure out what that means." "I love you too." We stood there in the church parking lot, snow falling soft around us, and I thought about Margaret, about how she'd always known what I'd had to learn the hard way, that real love isn't about making someone's life easy. It's about believing they're strong enough to handle hard things. And sometimes the hardest thing is letting them fall, so they can learn to stand on their own. Brittany comes to the farm most Sundays now. We have coffee, talk about her week, plan for the future. She's taking online classes in library science. Shane's doing better at his job, even got promoted. They're building something real now. Not impressive maybe, not glamorous, but real. And that's worth more than all the money I spent trying to buy her love. Last week she brought me a framed photo, her and Margaret from years ago, Brittany maybe 10 years old, both of them laughing on the front porch of this house. "I found this in some old boxes," she said. "Thought you might want it." I put it on the mantle next to Margaret's ashes. Some things you can't erase, no matter how hard you try. Some connections run deeper than names, and some lessons can only be learned the hard way. In hospital rooms and empty kitchens and the slow, painful work of becoming who you're meant to be. I'm 70 years old, and I'm still learning. But at least now, my daughter's learning too. And we're learning together.